friends, Father Marcus Shramley here again. Today I want to speak about the theme of creation in both the Bible and Mesopotamian mythology. Before we begin with the biblical account of creation, I want to first begin with the early Mesopotamian account of creation. Now, to be clear, there are no real stories of creation in the Mesopotamian account that still exist today. In the earliest Mesopotamian literature that still survives from the 3rd millennium to the 1st millennium, we see that there is no single source or text that gives us information on the creation myths. Rather, there's just this assumption that the gods had just existed before the world was created. Maybe there probably were myths, but the texts and stories of them are indeed lost today. Some pieces of it still exist today, but nothing that could paint a full picture for us today. In order to get kind of a general understanding of what these myths look like, we have to kind of take bits and pieces from these different texts that survive and kind of try to paint somewhat of a picture of what those creation myths could have looked like. For example, in the story of Gilgamesh and the Netherworld, we see it mentioned at the beginning of the text that at one time the heavens and earth were indeed united, and only later to be separated. Later on, humans were created and the gods divided up the responsibility of managing the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. In another Mesopotamian text, the Song of Hoi, the Mesopotamian god Enlil is the one who separates the heavens and earth and creates humanity. And the purpose of humanity is to provide for the gods, which is a common theme in much of Mesopotamian literature. And so we see that humans in Mesopotamian religion were clearly not created out of love. They were not seen to be created out of love, much different from what the Bible tells us. The creation story in Genesis, according to Pope Benedict XVI, reveals for us a fundamental truth about reality, that the world is not a result of chaos, but is actually born of and continually supported by God's love. We always hear of the comparison today when we're trying to understand the account of Genesis, and we see the world today it's no longer operating out of an ancient framework, but today is operating outside of a much more scientific, advanced sciences and technologies framework. We see that in this age of science, the biblical account of God creating the world in 6 days and resting on the 7th day must be incorrect when compared with modern science. So how are we supposed to understand it? Well, Pope Benedict tells us that the Bible is not meant to be a manual of natural science. Instead, it is meant to make understandable the authentic and deep truth of all things. The creation account of Genesis makes it known to us that the world has its origin and steadiness in the Word, the eternal reason of God, the eternal wisdom of God, who continues to sustain the universe. It shows us that everything that God creates is beautiful and good, filled with wisdom and love. The Pope continues to say that God created man and woman in His image and breathed life into them when He molded out of clay from the earth. Before we had lived in harmony with God, right? We lived in harmony with God, and now because of our sin, because of our original sin, the sin of our first parents, Adam and Eve, we have destroyed that original relationship with God and need now to be reconciled with God. This is why we need the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. This is why we need Jesus Christ in order to sacrifice Himself on behalf of us, in order that we might have eternal life. It sets up the entire groundwork, the entire story of Christianity. Thank you, and God bless you all.